So we are going to start with a brand new scene in Blender, and of course it comes with a cube by default. Let's remove that and let's create a UV sphere. So this is the basic shape that we're going to start out with, and let's go and to the tabs here and go to the view tab, and let's adjust the focal length to 100 millimeters. All right, and the reason why we are adjusting this to 100 millimeters is because we want our camera to not distort our mesh when we are sculpting our character. Now, this is Blender specific. For other digital sculpting programs like maybe ZBrush, you will have to set a different focal length value. But for Blender here, 100 millimeters is commonly used in artwork that focuses more on realistic perspective. And from my experience here, a higher focal length from 80 and above is good for portrait, showing the face up close and even the body. Okay, and let's go to our object mode. All right, yeah, 100 focal length, 100 millimeters. And let's go to sculpt mode, and let's go to our settings, and let's go to our remesh. For the voxel size, I like to start out with 0.02 and remesh that. Let's go and remesh it. So remember, you could also press Ctrl R to remesh. And I like to look at the front here, of course. And we can just go ahead and hide the panels here. And we could do that, just press N on your keyboard to hide it. Okay, so starting with this here, we gotta go ahead and just bring the jaw down. So I'm in the front view, and looking at the side view, I wanna kind of target exactly where the front view is and smoothing this out. All right. Smoothing this, and I'm gonna go to my smooth brush, and for my smooth brush here I could bring it down the strength so that I'm not really melting down the shape, and just moving this to the side. So what I'm creating here is I'm thinking about the basic shape, overall basic shape of just the head. And this is going to be serving as more like the jaw area. So I know this is going to be the front of the face. I'm doing this just so I could see which area is going to be the front of the face. So I move this down, grab this down, and kind of flatten this a bit. So I know I could able to identify that this is going to be the front and this here is going to be the back. So right off the bat, I want to be able to identify which is going to be the front view and which is going to be the back view. I want to make that difference there. And using the clay strip brush, I am just kind of pushing this clay in. So I'm just creating this surface here like a helmet type of surface. So it's a little flat, and then we get a little bit of roundness going on here. So really just doing the basic forms of the head here, nothing really major. But it's good to get the general shape down, because we don't really want to have a flat face, so we kind of really want to get the basics. Okay, and here I'm using my clay strip brush, and I'm just pushing in the clay, holding Control and pushing it in, and then I'm pushing this out. Right there. And just gonna add a little bit of shape here. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm using the clay strip brush to just add some volume, add some clay on top around the areas here, just so I could create the form, a little bit of the form of the skull. All right, so what I'm trying to get here is just the basic form of the skull. And as you can see, I have pushed in the orbital region just so I could see exactly where my eyeballs are going to be later, and I kind of made a little bit of push here for I know where the nose is going to be. So this is going to be the nasal opening. Yeah, so remember, to push in the clay, you just gotta hold control and paint over the mesh to push it in. So you can see whether I'm pushing in the clay. I hope you can see the difference, that this right here I just pushed in the clay there to have a little bit of depth on the side of the skull. Because, you know, if you look at the side view of the skull, or even if you have the skin, if there's a skin on top here, some males, you could see that they really have this prominent shape on the side of their skull. And yeah, this is what I'm trying to get at. Okay, and yeah, this right here, just you could really see that there's this cheekbone area that I'm trying to create there from the side. So whenever I'm starting out with just sculpting the face, I like to do the basic shape of the skull. And right here, I'm doing the frontal bone of the skull there, adding a little bit of roundness. And pushing this clay in a little bit further. And I could use the grab brush to bring that down, bring this down a bit. So you can see you see it coming along. You see the side here of the skull. So we got the lower part of the skull, and then you have this upper part of the skull here. So just thinking that this shape here when sculpting. We're not really gonna make a detailed version of the skull, just really basic version of the skull. That's all that we really need. And yeah, right now we're not really thinking about the likeness of the character. All we're doing is trying to implement the anatomy. And as you can see there, I have pushed this out a little bit. This is going to be for the nasal opening. So I made this here. So this is going to serve like the bridge of the nose, because later on that will give us an indication exactly where our nose is going to be later. This is going to be the nose area. And then later we're going to be, of course, adding the lips. We're going to add the jaw and everything. But it's good to have our skull there. That will give us a nice indication where everything needs to go, where the future of the face need to go, where the nose need to go, ears, eyes, everything. Because if we have the underlying bony structure down, then our anatomy of the face, the features of the face, the muscles in the face will be so much better. And looking from the bottom view here, could just kind of move this part because I thought it was a little flat. And just gonna push this in. Now I suggest that you also grab some references of the skull as you're doing this. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of clay here on top. And just looking at all views as I'm doing this here. And looking at the right view, side view, back views is very important when you're sculpting. Looking at the right orthographic view right now. And just kind of pushing that in. Now keep in mind, if you are doing a male character, that the brow ridge here is going to be a lot more prominent than when you're doing a female character. And likewise, this area here, the side of the skull, is going to be much more prominent if you are doing a male character. So just keep that in mind as you are sculpting. Pull this up, pull this up. You could also, while you're doing the skull, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to ignore your reference. I think that you should also look at your subject and see how the skull of your character looks like from underneath the skin. So if you see that your character has really prominent cheekbones, so most likely you're going to have to really make those zygomatic bone on the side, the cheekbones of the skull pop out more. And if you have a character that has maybe really big eyes, maybe the orbital region, the eye part here, then you have to make it larger, the spacing of the orbital area, the orbital region. And I know that Superman, Henry Cavill, The Witcher, I know that his forehead, his brow ridge is really, really manly. Yeah, this is really prominent. And also this part is kind of prominent here also. So the forehead is a lot of testosterone, lots of bony landmarks showing on the forehead. So I am kind of really exaggerating a bit here on the skull. So yeah, look at your skull. Yeah, but at the same time, you still keep in mind how your subject is, okay? Not really focusing on the likeness, but just kind of observing how the structure of his bone, the structure of his skull is. I'm going to bring down the smooth brush here. So when I smooth it, I want to bring it down some more, the strength of the smooth brush. That way when I smooth it, it's not going to melt down the shape of the skull that I already have there. And really this is how much as far as I could go with the skull. I'm not really going to be doing the teeth at all. This is all that we really need. And just kind of adjusting this here. Once again, really important that you look at some reference of the skull and how that skull is linking and how it connects with your character's face. And right now, going to the clay strip brush, we could go ahead and add some clay on top here that will serve as the eyeball, somewhat of the fat and the muscles on the eyes, just so that we have something there that we could work with. Let's just add a little clay there and kind of smooth it out. And then now I'm thinking about the upper eyelids, the lower eyelids, and just creating that shape there. So the reason why I like to do this is so that when I create the eyes, it's not gonna really look flat. Because I know there are some people there when they create eyes, it doesn't look real because it looks a little too flat. They forget the overall shape of the skull. But by adding that orbital structure and then adding the kind of like somewhat a basic shape of the eyeballs is something to work with, you have a better understanding of where the eyelid's gonna be and how it's gonna wrap around the eyes. And also here, when you are right here, I do have the bony landmark. And think about your character. You're gonna have like a little bit under here is gonna be a little bit of fatty tissue. So you're gonna see that on some people. It's not gonna be as noticeable, but there's gonna be like some flesh here, some flesh and some little bit of fat there, but very, very subtle. And it really depends on your character too. Some people, of course, they're gonna have, this is gonna be really, really prominent, this area, all right? The orbital edge, orbital area region there is gonna be more prominent than others. And I think in my case with Henry Cavill, it's that area is really, really prominent. Prominent, but yeah, I think just enough. And I'm gonna go ahead and decrease the size of the voxel size there, just so I could have more geometry to work with, so I could add a little bit more forms on the eyes. If you're sculpting the eyes and you see that there's not much you could add, that's because you just don't have enough geometry. So decrease the voxel size, that way you could add a little bit more of the shape that you need. Yeah, especially the eyes. The eye area is going to have like one of the most geometry out of all the body parts. And so right now I'm adding the nose here. So we had the nasal opening. As you can see, we started out with the nasal opening, and so now just adding some clay here, we know that this is exactly where the nose is gonna be. You got the nose bridge here, and then we have to create the nose here. And keep in mind, every nose is different. There's some people where their nose is kind of like lifted up a bit, so it's gonna have this tip. All right. And then there's some people where their nose is a little bit down, so it's kind of like pointy like this. So keep in mind, take a look at how your character shape of the nose is. Some could be like more in the middle. Yeah, so I'm gonna move that. And move this here using the grab brush. As you can see, I am really definitely just using the grab brush a lot here to just bring out the features of the face. And now I'm using the clay strip brush to just add the nostrils, add the wings of the nose, I meant. And so now I'm pushing in this bottom part. So really, when you are sculpting, think of the nose here. You have the wings, and you also have this shape here. And think of this in 3D form, where you have this surface there. So just really just doing the basic forms of the nose there. Nothing really detailed. You don't get too much with doing the details at all of your character's face right now. Just think of the basic forms really and try to implement there on your sculpt. Yeah, right now it's not really gonna look good. Okay, right now it's gonna look a little messy, like melted clay right now, but we're in our beginning stages. And here, I'm going to just make that smaller. I felt it's a little big. And at this point, I suggest you also really look at your subject and see the proportion of your character's nose compared to the eyes. Because since everybody's different, some people might have longer noses, shorter noses, wider nose. So really observe your subject and see how that looks like. And so right now I'm just trying to see exactly where the eyes is gonna be, and here I'm just like, I just pushed in the clay using the draw sharp brush, pushing the clay here, just so I could have an eye opening, something that I could use as a visual presentation of later where the eye is gonna be. But later on we are going to be sticking an eyeball inside, an actual UV sphere in there. And another thing that you need to look at is when you're studying your reference is you need to look at the distance between the eyes. All right. So some people, their eyes are like really close together, all right, like really close together, and where you see like they have really narrow noses. And then there's going to be some people where their eyes are a little bit like farther apart, and then you're going to have like a little bit of wider nose bridge area here. Okay, so really think about your character and how it looks different from other celebrities, from other people. As far as Henry goes, I would say that his eyes are more like mid-range. It's not so close to each other. There's still some, pretty good amount of space between the two eyes, And another thing that you should look at is you look at the overall shape of the eyes here. As you are doing the basic shape of the eyes, you should also think that later on that there is really going to be like an eyeball that we're going to be putting in here. So if there's going to be a UV sphere there, you need to think about that the eyelid needs to have it like wrap around the eyeball. All right, it's going to wrap around the eyeball, so you know that from the perspective view that the eyelid is not just going to be like flat. You can't just like draw or sculpt flat looking eyes. You got to think of it as if the eyeballs is already there as you're sculpting. Yep, there you go. And just think about the eyelids, the upper eyelids, and just kind of marking that there where that upper eyelid is going to be. It's really a rough shape right now. We are still working with low polygons. Not a lot of polygons here. And gonna adding a little bit more marks there underneath the eyes. Look at your reference as you start to add more and more of the shape of the eyes. But at the same time, don't, like I said before, like in this part of our video here, in this part, we're not really dwelling too much on the likeness. Just a little bit, but not so much. What we are more concerned about is just the overall anatomy, the anatomy of the face, and making sure everything is still looking like a human being. And I'm still using the clay strip brush here, and I am thinking about the fibers of the face. So we have, of course, the shape of the orbital area here, and we got the eyelids already kind of going on, and we have a little bit of depth here, kind of pushing the clay there. And in here, this is important because you see me, I'm doing like a little bit of stroke here, because we do have a little bit of fat here, all right? And every character has that. And adding a little bit of the shapes, trying to think about the lips already, using the clay brush and just putting a little bit of clay here, all right? And later we are going to be starting to add the lips, okay? But this part is right here is important, and add a little bit of clay there would be good. And you're gonna see that in your character too if you look at it. And some people it's going to be more prominent there, and some not. And right there, I'm just gonna trying to mark the lips there and adding some clay there, still using the clay strip brush. So lots of pushing in and pushing out the clay, and you are constantly going to just remesh this, Control R to remesh it. If you're sculpting and you feel like you can't add as much shape anymore, that's because maybe you need to redistribute the polygons and remesh it. And so there, after I add like the volume here, add some clay here on top, what I like to do is I like to push in the clay around this area. Just push this in just to kind of indicate the mark of the lips. It's going to be pushed in here, and then I add like a little bit of clay here to kind of indicate the lower lips, and then we have there the upper lips. And yeah, don't be too stressed out about how it looks. Like it looks a little crappy right now, because that's how it is at the beginning. We're really in the beginning stages right now. Yeah, as I'm doing the lips, I'm just thinking about the shape. This is when I think of the upper lips, I'm just thinking of like the bow and arrow. So I got this Cupid's bow. Yeah, this is like the arrow. Cupid's bow. That's why I'm thinking of when I'm doing this. So we got that shape, and we have this part of the lips there that I'm thinking of, and then we have the muscular structure here underneath going. So thinking of this shape here as I am creating a sculpt. Right now it looks like his lips are pouting, but like I said, not much concern about that. I just want to make sure it's there, the general shape. And as you're doing the lips, that also think about that there's this shape here, round shape. I'm thinking this shape, and that there's 1, 2, 3, and then I think of the bottom lips. I think of 2 forms. I think of 1 and 2, and of course we got the edges of the lips there. So I see some people when they do the lips, the beginners, they they like to use like the crease brush or the draw sharp brush, and they just like kind of draw the lips like this. They just use like the draw sharp brush to just like push in the clay and just carve the clay in and draw the lips like that, and then maybe add volume there. I think that's gonna give you like really flat lips. I think it's best to just carve it like how you like sculpt it like you would in real life. Like add a little bit of clay there, and then push in the clay in some areas to add a little depth. And right now I'm using the clay brush, and this here, and just this is an important part of the lips here. On the side, you're gonna see like a little node, a little bit of bumpiness there. And yeah, if you're doing a male character, you're also gonna see this a lot. Like there's this node, and then there's this lips here. So just thinking of that shape as you're doing that. And with Henry Cavill here, his jaw is quite prominent, and there's this depth here on his jaw. So I'm kind of like implementing that there on the sculpt already. And just kind of smoothing it out. If it gets a little rough right now. Okay, so just bring in the shape there. Looks a little funny, but yeah, all I'm thinking about is just trying to get the shape down, just the basic shape down, really. And so here, just looking a little flat, the jaw. So right now I'm looking at the side view, making sure that things are not looking flat, especially at the beginning. At the beginning, you might get into that flat face syndrome, so try to avoid that flat face syndrome. As you can see here, the lips, it looks a little flat. So what I'm gonna do is I'm using the like grab brush right now and just kind of push it out a bit. Yeah, because when you are doing the lips, you need to think more like stairs. Okay, you got like stairs there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3 actually. Yeah, so you got like steps as you are. Yeah, when you're doing the lips, think of that step. Yeah, from the side view, this is like the straight side view, and making sure that I have a shape, nice shape going here. And another thing is for the eyes, you have to make sure that the upper eyelids here is a little sticking out a little bit more than the lower eyelids. When you are doing the eyes, like from the side view, you're gonna see more like this slanted shape. So the eyelids here is gonna be just a little bit subtle, sticking out a bit more, and this is gonna be a little bit more pushed in. But overall, you need to also think about the eyeballs is gonna be here later. And just pushing this here, using the grab brush. Yeah, I'm gonna fix the eyes later. Right now, not worried too much about it. And I'm gonna mask the head. So right here, I'm masking the head there. Yeah, using the masking to mask that out. And I'm gonna just smooth it. So yeah, like right now, using a mask brush, just mask this area. And yeah, I just want to mask that because I want to be able to adjust the lower face without affecting the upper part of the face. So using my grab brush, I'm just gonna kind of move this lower area of the face, lower part of the head. I'm just gonna kind of move it, and I'm using a really big brush right now because I want to manipulate a huge portion of the face. And also now just doing the nose with a smaller brush. Fix this area up to be a little longer. It really has a little short nose. I might go back to it later. Right now, nothing is really set in stone, the overall shape. But yeah, just go ahead and try to make your character look more like a human being than an alien right now. Just really making him look natural. And this here needs to be kind of pushed in. And add a little bit of clay there for the wings of the nose. Look like it's starting to fade out a bit. And when I'm looking at Henry Cavill, he looks like he does have a little bit of Native American blood in him. Just by looking at the cheekbone, he has really nice high muscular cheekbones and also really hard muscular, like strong nose, very strong nose, strong forehead. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised it has a little bit of Native American in him. And so here I'm just using the draw sharp brush to just kind of indicate the lining of the mouth there. So right now he just looks like he's smiling a bit, but he's not gonna be smiling later. It's best to just kind of draw your facial features natural, like neutral facial expression. So you don't want him looking too happy at all. And just gonna bring this down. Thinking about the shape of the lips. Smooth it out. And add a little bit of volume right here on the jaw. Add a little bit more clay there. And here, thigh was looking a little thin, so needed to kind of add more clay on there. And I'm just gonna use a grab brush to kind of round this out. So this is very important when you are looking at the bottom of your character. You also need to think about the roundness of the lids. Okay. Often I see people, beginners, when they're sculpting, they don't even look at the bottom of the character's face. So all they focus on is just looking at the front of the face or the perspective view, but rarely they look at the bottom. But really the bottom of the face is so important because you could see whether your character's eyes is gonna look too flat or not. You know, from the bottom view, you don't want your character's eyes to look flat like this, right? when you're sculpting, you want to already have it look like it's wrapping around an eyeball from the bottom. And also the lips there, you have to think of the lips as if it's like wrapped around, like this is like, let's say, a can of tuna, and then you have like the lips here kind of form on a cylindrical surface. Look at the front view, look at the bottom view, look at the top view of the character. Look in all views as you're sculpting. Very important to do that. And so here I'm just kind of make it a little bit more subtle, the bony landmarks of the face, because it's a little too strong. So at first you're gonna see that your character is looking really, really bony on the face because we started out with just the skull. But then you slowly start to add more of the flesh on top of that, and you slowly start to lose the bony landmarks on the face. And if you're doing a female character, you're gonna really slowly lose all that shape of the bones that's showing. But if you have a male character, then you're probably gonna have a lot of the bony parts kind of stay there. If you're gonna have a female character, expect to have much softer features. And smoothing this out, it looks like right here, gonna smooth that out. Bring the brush down a bit, and yeah, just gonna smooth it out here. So there you go, because I don't want it too much details right now. I just wanna, right now I'm also, it's best to look at your character from far away. All right, yeah, like look at your character's photo from far away, because we are working with quite low resolution, and when we're working for low resolution, we're not gonna be able to add as much details as we want to. So it's okay to look at your character's picture from afar, because you just want to see the forms, the little forms of the face. And there you go. And right here, I'm just gonna adding a little bit more of the nose structure, creating that nose structure there, and then bringing back a little bit more of the shape of the lips. So the reason why I just really want to smooth it out is because I know I'm gonna make some minor changes on the shape of the face anyway, so it's cool to just keep them smooth. And right here, I'm just masking out where the ears are gonna be. So just masking this out with the mask tool. And right there, I know the ears are gonna be here. And invert that, Control I to invert. We're gonna start to do the basic form of the ear here. Try to figure out where the ear is gonna be protruded out. And could also go to the move tool now. Going to the move brush. Let's go to sculpt, set pivot, and let's go to pivot to mask border. So now it's right where the mask border is at, and let's use the move tool to just kind of move it in the X direction. I'm gonna have to do this again because I'm just gonna undid something here. And yeah, make sure that you have symmetry turned on as you do this. And let's go ahead and move this to the side, so we got a geometry for the ears that we could work with. So you don't want to protrude it too much, because later we are going to be using the grab brush anyways to better shape this out. And let's go and unmask that. And using the clay strip brush to just push in the clay. So what I'm doing now is I'm just thinking of this shape here. So I'm thinking of the basic shape, the basic surface. So I have this surface here, and then I am creating this basic surface right there. Thinking of that form there as I'm doing this. And also make sure you look at the side, the top, the back, and I'm using the draw sharp to just push that and carve that in right there, and carve this in at the back using the draw sharp brush. And smooth that out. And just going to smooth it out on the side. So right here it was getting a little bit funky around this area, so gotta make sure that's a little bit cleaner. And there you go. Just using the grab brush to kind of move the ears, better shape it out. Pushing in the clay with the clay strip brush. So as you can see, I didn't even really add those details on the nose, on the ears, just so I could have something to work with, and later on we're going to throw out the details on the ears in the next couple of videos. So right now, just really the overall shape of Henry Cavill. And it doesn't really look like Henry Cavill, but I could see a little bit that the shape is there. And that is what we're really trying to strive for now. As long as you could see that a little bit of him is already there, I think you should be in a good shape. Yeah, and here I'm just like kind of adding a little bit more flesh because I think it's look like it's a little bit pushed in. So think of the areas where it looks a little bit lumpy, too lumpy, and add more clay there as needed. And looking from the bottom, the side,